exciting presentation coming up next, and I want to introduce somebody who really doesn't need any introduction. Dr. Ramasami, former Secretary to the Government of India. And in my brief interaction in the coffee room there was so much energy coming out of his presence. I think you'll really enjoy his presentation. I really don't need to introduce him. He's a very well-known face, but I do want to alert you to some of his accomplishments that I thought were very entrepreneurial. When I went through his background, I said, wow, this is something that I would not have expected, to happen. So I really want to, so he was, his leadership of CSIR, Central Leather Research Institute, was really brilliant, and I'll tell you why I say that. In a moment of crisis, Professor Ramaswamy helped to save over 250,000 jobs, 250,000 jobs because of his leadership. That's something I think even Jeff Bezos or all of those guys would be proud of. So congratulations on that. Also, 6,000 crores annual turnover and 3,500 crores of annual export. These are mind-boggling numbers. These are not numbers I would have expected to be hearing. So I'm very honored to be able to introduce you and have your presentation to the guests here. By the way, you're still sitting at the back. You need to move forward. Unless you're planning to leave after coffee, that would be the only reason to stay there. So please move forward. You call a mic or prefer the? I don't mind doing this. Oh, thank you. Very good morning. Before I start anything, let me congratulate University of Hyderabad. This Aspire movement, I don't call it an organization, it's an aspirational movement. And of course, they talked about verticals within Aspire, but all that verticals are integrated by one theme. That is to connect knowledge to money-making enterprise. And therefore, I'm very happy to be able to see several friends of mine, because University of Hyderabad used to be my nest when I was an academic, because you come to Hyderabad, you want to escape into a nest where you get more secure. I see my friends here, my faculty, and Kalidas, for example. So, most of us in the administrative governance, you always keep some place where you go and hide out. In Madras, it is Math Science. So, Hyderabad, it is the University of Hyderabad. So, thank you very much for getting me back here and let me see some friends. And it so happened, and Dr. Prasad wrote to me about this building, the entrepreneurial system. I told myself, I'm such a useless guy for building anything, because civil engineers are required to build something. Civil engineers do everything with the hand and structures. I'm an architect. The architects design beautiful things, but many of them won't be stable. Therefore, I told, no, I can't do this. It's a business of building. So what I will do is give this talk, entrepreneurial ecosystem, in an academic environment, and present challenges and opportunities, and leave the rest of these guys who are able to resolve that and build this entrepreneurial ecosystem, because I don't have the capacity. Having said this, let me give you this word's ecosystem. I mean, many of you are very familiar with the ecosystem. It really refers to a geographical space where multiple entities cohabit and create a bubble of life. I think entrepreneurial ecosystem should be one such, where there's a bubble of life is what is important, not profit. That's what's important, energy levels. Environment really refers to the conditions of work environment. So University of Hyderabad is an academic environment because it provides that academic setting in the process. I think to me, I don't use the word challenges and opportunities separately because every challenge is an opportunity. Every opportunity comes with its own challenge. So I call the Siamese twins, inseparable. Therefore, they truly, in any social endeavor, however small it might be, even organizing this, there was a challenge in dealing with people like me. And there's an opportunity bringing people like me too. So that's a challenge and opportunity truly are inseparable. And having said this, you look at an academic environment. What does an academic environment provide? The work environment is designed to develop a persona of a human being. University's major role is not to create profit. It is not to solve problems. University's mandate is to develop a persona of a human being. So the focus is an individual of a persona of an environment and to provide a knowledge in the system which is all-time great, universal focus in the university environment. Now, most academics you need minimum risk. In science they will take risk, but in life they will take no risk. Now, entrepreneurial ecosystem fosters work culture where risk is the food. Fundamentally, risk taking is for a profiting. That's the goal of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. The challenge in this case, there's a cultural dichotomy between academic environment and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that is pertaining to the management of risk. Risk taking and management. That's the challenge which is we talked about. And in terms of opportunity, it is truly, as said before, it's a university where you develop a persona of an individual and a group of individuals make a society. And the generations of a nation are built in the university system. So I remember when I went to the Department of Science and Technology as secretary, I think doing research in a national lab is a different process. But it is the rejuvenation of research in the university system is crucial. Because that's where the students come, that's where the personalities get developed. So the PERS, which I introduced called Promotion of University Scientific Excellence, is truly on account of the fact it needs to be built in this country, any social environment, is university's focus and it cannot be national lab. You can solve a problem in a time, but building a nation in a long time space is essential. Therefore, what is important is to generate among your people, in the persona of people whom you develop, a capacity to resolve this bicultural dichotomy in a new generation of Indians. That has happened only in academic environment. Therefore, I don't think whether doing this entrepreneurial system is an option for university. You have no choice. Because you have to build a new India, a new generation of people are built here. Therefore, I said here that's an opportunity. You look at these cultural factors between academic environment and entrepreneurial process, the sense of time, okay, for most academicians is infinite and intermediate at best. I don't think a good thinker will do research into bound space. There is a truly open-ended thinking process and intellectual infrastructure, the freedom to think is what is important for, that's why most people do research in academic basic science. Therefore, ideally, if you're looking at in terms of the infinite and intermediate systems, and successful entrepreneurs, sense of time is immediate. They are not prepared to wait for infinite times because they will go broke. Now, looking at the reference to social context, I think truly an education should provide universal time space, not necessarily, and it has to be goodness focused. Now, entrepreneurial process, local and market dynamics. Market will determine eventually enterprise is going to survive or not. Now, risk management mindset, I think most of us is risk averse. It's the DNA, the cultural DNA of Indians built on a risk averse system. Even enterprises, even companies look for DA increases. Therefore, this question of avoiding failure is a process, and we have 300 years of foreign rule, and that's a bigger issue. Therefore, but successful entrepreneurs embrace risk and build risk mitigation strategy. Knowledge management strategy, knowledge for its own beauty and sake. I don't think even in my younger days, in my own when I was in 20s, in CLRA, I had a board outside my lab. It said, "We are at work. Don't disturb, don't enter." That's my board in CLRA. Okay? And I said, my first talk in Ireland as a PhD student, my international conference coordinating committee, I said, "I don't know whether you like reading me or not. I enjoy doing it, so you better suffer it." Therefore, it was the beauty of science. Now, no entrepreneur can talk with the beauty of science. They say it's okay to be beautiful, we want to be useful. Therefore, use and the ability to create value is a focus of an enterprise system. Purpose of actions, celebration of knowledge. Knowledge itself is celebrated. You have to celebrate value, money, wealth, not the knowledge itself for its own beauty. I think we must remember, we want no matter, you can take Indian out of India and put them in America, but you can't take India out of the man. Therefore, Saraswati is the goddess for education. Okay? And Lakshmi is the goddess for wealth. And we cleverly converted their mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Therefore, there will be constant fight. My friend was saying they will come together. I said that not in India. So the features of real academic environment, intellectual freedom is a cultural practice. Richard Feynman talks about intellectual freedom. And freedom from hierarchical social ordering, nothing other than knowledge. Now, where knowledge is revered and reverential power is the medium. Okay? Some of our institutions, celebrated institutions, there's no one vice chancellor, one director. Every faculty is a director, every faculty is a vice chancellor. You take my mother institute in Bangalore, when the person director will tell you there are 500 directors. Focus is on the development of a persona of the learner. What is delivered is an ideal human being with character and competence. What the academic environment provide? Character, not competence-based systems alone. And goodness is the goal. Goodness with speed is acceptable, but speed alone without goodness is not acceptable. Now you go to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, success the enterprise, the marketplace is a cultural setting. Division of labor and decision hierarchy is a norm. Somebody take a decision, others have to follow. And if the Aspire board does something and Prasad says, "No, I won't do it," I think they won't be happy. Neither Prasad will be happy. So the transactional strength and power of systems, give and take, is a component of transaction process, and success is an enterprise. What is delivered is a product or service that meets the consumer demands. And eventually, speed of actions, recontouring are the key of entrepreneurial ecosystem. So entrepreneurs should be embedded in the academic environment in a very, I won't get into the details of those. Today, in knowledge economy, global knowledge economy, knowledge is seen as the next lever of wealth change in this process, economic changes in the world, and therefore, knowledge is a very important component of this whole system. I don't agree with several of my friends who talk about innovation is something that created here. That's a democratization of innovation. India need not follow somebody else's example. Every Indian, to me, innovation is a human habit. It's a cultural DNA. Every individual is capable of innovating. And if Indian does it, we call it jugaad. When they do it, innovation. If an Indian decides, it's an artisan. If a Frenchman does it, he's a designer. Forget this language. Language is language. Fundamentally, democratization of innovation in this country has happened over centuries. We don't have to follow those examples. But the problem here, converting an idea into a product, converting an idea into wealth, is a different process. There are several inhibitors. And that's what we should address. And that inhibitors is a cultural process. There's a generational processes. Fortunately, the generation to which many of you belong, I call it generational aspiration. You name the Aspire. I belong to the generation of essentially, if you can break generations. My friend here, Dr. Balu, generation of freedom struggle. Okay? I belong to the generation of deprivation syndrome. And there are some people here, comparison syndrome. Then there is a generation of globalization. Are with a Vasudeva Kudumbakam. Then the globalization evolved as a marketplace. And today, the younger people who are here in the university generate aspiration. That aspiration process, this population, aspiring generation, cannot afford to restrict themselves. The role of academics only to precise knowledge. It should foster also gainful knowledge. I'm not going to useful. Gainful knowledge, gain is a very larger term. I won't go into the details of those. Now, when I did PhD in England, this famous institution, Cambridge University, is a very interesting system. If somebody went and talked about money making in Cambridge, okay, when I was doing PhD, they will not be thrown out of the university, they'll be thrown out of the town itself. Therefore, it is truly changed. In 50 years, they have become a model of entrepreneurship and startup activities in an academic environment. Because I like to University of Hyderabad, not mimic them, but learn from them. Now this, look at this University of Cambridge. For those of you who are new to these numbers, if I had to have backed up with data. It turns out established in 1209, okay? No one single vice chancellor continued from 1209. The people have come and gone, they maintained excellence all through, okay? And the university which retained excellence over the longest period in human history was Nalanda, before Christ. And Nalanda by name itself got joy of giving, not joy of taking. Now, the service motto, if you go back and look at the motto of Cambridge, it talks about precise knowledge, okay? Enlightenment. Oops, sorry. The number of staff, 6,170. And supporting staff, 3,165. That's it, 20 numbers. There are reasons I'm giving these numbers. And the number of students trained is 12,850. 3 students per faculty. And budget, 2.3 billion pounds. You divide this 2.3 billion pounds by 6,170, you will know what's the number per faculty. And their revenue, 7.1 billion. This is 2020 numbers. Nobel Prizes, 122. 70 is the number of Nobel Prizes won by the alumnus of Cambridge. Number of field medals, 11. Number of the Turing medals, 7, as of 2019. And it is much more than any university in the world. Any university in the world. Forget about QS ranking, this ranking, that ranking. I think you measure what is measurable. Okay? Metrics measure your body weight. Can anybody weigh your soul? Can anybody weigh your weight? Therefore, no matter they may be ranked 3, Oxford may be ahead of them by the number, but I don't think Cambridge will also accept that. In the 1970s, the word enterprise got added PhD in the 70s, subject to the mirth under the lip in the university staff. Today, the Cambridge boasts of the most vibrant innovation ecosystem. There's much to learn from them. And innovators and entrepreneurs based in the university and in the wider local community have developed more than 1,600 firms. And between them, some 3,000 people, and 3,000 people in Cambridge town is a huge number. Cambridge is not larger than probably 3 University of Hyderabad area. Now, private sector, collaboration between the university and the private sector continues to influence the growth of what is known, according to them, Cambridge phenomenon. If you go back and look at the dictionary meaning of the word phenomenon, it's a natural occurrence. It happened on its own. What they're talking about in Cambridge, this assembly process was self-assembly. Why did this self-assembly happen? Because the levels of insecurity between institutions is very low. Because they've lived in this levels of comfort for many years. Why does it happen in Hyderabad or any place of India? Our insecurity levels are very high. If you, for example, if your electricity fails in your house, what did you go back and look to the neighbor's house? They also have lost their electricity, you are very happy. Therefore, that is our process. The phenomenon is about natural occurrence. Cambridge phenomenon happened on its own. This is my interpretation. Okay, phenomenal. But when other data source Wikipedia, therefore, if there's error, they will go and ask them, not mine. Now, what is that Cambridge phenomenon is all about? They have a network enterprises in the university. They have a Cambridge enterprise, which is an system, and that supports knowledge transfer. They have a technology enterprise hub, which is club, and this is a student-run organization. The students of the university run that organization, and they promote entrepreneurial spirit. And they aim to educate and encourage students to consider entrepreneurial ideas. They are building next generation of young Englishmen in that area. And that was what the university is trying to do at this moment. And you're talking about the science park is about, they have 150 acres, 1.7 million square foot of high technology laboratory space. It's a home for 7,000 people and about 120 companies. And they have an innovation center. And at Cambridge, apart from this, they have something else called social innovation, build best practices across business, civil society, policy, academia for more equitable and inclusive and sustainable world. This is Britain. Equitable and sustainable world. Okay? So growth by itself without regulation is cancer. There has to be, many of your biologists, you know, this apoptosis is an integral part of society. If the programmed death cell has to happen, because otherwise there's another problem. Growth has to be controlled. And that's what they have done in their own space. So the most important reason for the Cambridge long-lasting success is comparatively mature system grounded in research and connected to finance and other support. So the details, I think you guys can read English, and I won't read this out. But fundamentally, this is a successful live example, Cambridge phenomenon. I think if Hyderabad wants to do something similar to this country, not the University of Hyderabad, not the city of Hyderabad, if you want to do something similar to this country, there are lessons learned from. So Cambridge is a low risk. I did not say the university. Please understand, I missed the word university here. Cambridge is a low risk environment to do high risk things. Okay? Can Hyderabad become the center to do low risk, provide a low risk environment to high risk things? And that is what this conference is all about. Okay? So architect finishes it, and you guys have to convert that into a building process. So when I say entrepreneurship, and we are using this entrepreneurship and startup as if they are mutually exchangeable. That's not true. So entrepreneurship and startup activities, like my friends used to say, the US and UK are countries divided by a common language called English. And I think entrepreneurship and startup also is that kind of a comparison bridged by a common language called risk. So, So entrepreneurship and startup to me are two sides of the same coin, which they don't see each other. Two sides cannot have. Entrepreneurship is about the creation, extraction of new values through routes generally entailing risk beyond what is normally encountered. In other words, it's an element of risk in the system, but entrepreneurship need not lead to a company. Entrepreneurship can be exercised even in your house. Entrepreneurship is a character that you build. But startup is a company in the initial stages of business and is able to source finance for operations from a variety of sources for covering the risk and failures, and it's exploring unique business space with focus on innovation and opportunities to break new paths, explore and learn. So startup company learning is a very important part of the process. Both deal with risk, both deal with ventures, but startup is a company focused on initial stages of operation, where entrepreneur is focused on the value creation for its own end. There need not necessarily be a company. And startup explores new paths. Entrepreneurship is not limited to innovation. You need not have innovation to have the entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is beyond all this process. So It's a process of involving business type activities, the creation of new values and resources. It's based on calculated assessment of risk potentials. It is not limited to initial process alone. It goes all the way through. A startup company, it's a legal entity. It has a regulatory process. Entrepreneurship need not have a regulatory process. You don't have a company. And they rely on support of external ecosystem, explore unique spaces, and could be sold as a company. The best startup company is not the one that grows vertically, but after some time sell it up, because your creation of startup is by itself, like publishing a paper. So you keep publishing, That's a kind of a process. Now, entrepreneurship development initiative, there is an environment they talk about. Okay, this is the university environment, academic environment. Within this environment, there's an opportunity, there's an organization, there is a resource. These are three triangles, and there have problems of how to configure them. And how do we have a focus on this? How do we get the fit in the process? Entrepreneurship culture is needed for a society, and of course, the roles of mentors and advisors in the development initiatives are key. And morning I was telling, in the case of Aspire, my friend Yogeshwar is a mentor, where my students, however, call me a tormentor. There are many established institutions offering training programs. And what is common, we every time here don't want to quote example from some other country. Because please understand, management is a part of a culture. They're like a food. It's better to get examples from within their own country. So I don't believe in comparisons. Look at it, all these are Indians anyway. All the successful entrepreneurs have something in common. They offer cost advantage or competition, bring premium for affordability, and all those kind of things. Let me take some good examples for this process. Take Captain Gopin. He went and pet this aviation, Air Deccan. And he said, first low-cost airline in the world. What the lesson we learn from it? It is vulnerable to take over, because somebody has took them. You do all the hard work, but somebody takes you away. Poonawalla, healthcare, Serum Research Institute, affordable human healthcare. He's a very clever guy. He got Oxford to do the research and produce it in this country. Therefore, collaborative models for global impact. He was not limited only to my homegrown process. Singh, pharma sector, Ranbaxy, reverse engineering a product and bring affordability and if you do not do forward engineering, you can't stay afloat. That's a lesson learned. Shiv Nadar, he saw that IBM was thrown out, and there's a void created, gap, filled up, a global company with Indian roots. Narayana Murthy, he saw the value for expertise arbitrage of India, therefore service sector emerged, he became a leader. Therefore, Gopinath dreamt of making air travel affordable. I do not use the word bottom of the economic pyramid because it gives you vultures. I call it base of the economic pyramid. He saw the base of the economic pyramid. The company was vulnerable, could be bought over. Poonawalla saw the opportunity, collaborative excellence during the COVID time. For purpose of clarification, 60% of the children vaccine of the world before COVID was manufactured in this country. Okay? And Poonawalla was the leader. Make markets. When the COVID thing came back, I said, no, world has no other place to manufacture vaccine. They'll come here anyway. Let them do research anywhere else. So you saw the Singh, Nadar, I mentioned all that to you. And I'm going to, because it's Hyderabad, I'm going to present a case study of Hyderabad. This young man was a school student in 2008, and he came to my science congress in Shillong. I was the president. And Kalam took ill, and therefore I had to substitute him. All my life I've been substituting people. And this individual, now, last year, was included in the under the Forbes 30, the under 30 of Forbes 30 worldwide for entrepreneur. And he essentially came to me with an idea when I was in DST to have a startup company to have a robotics for people, stroke affected people to walk the staircase. The stroke affected people much more complicated things than walking in a staircase. So don't do this. Don't look at this kind of products or new products which require creation of new market. You want a startup company, you go back and look. Selling is about meeting an unmet demand. So don't create new place. So what he did, he went and created a bionic arm. The bionic arm cost 60 lakhs. He created something for 3.5 lakhs. He didn't stop there. He went and convinced some 100 corporate companies to buy them, sell them, and then he covered this product by backup by CSR support, and he also convinced them to hire them after this process. And today, his company, Google, wanted to buy for 1,000 crores. He refused to sell it. He's a Hyderabad guy. Last year, I came here for Hyderabad, attended his marriage. And I don't want to play the, I don't know, I skipped the video. And this is the bionic arm. His recovery was picked up by PMO. So PMO invited him, and they said PM wants to launch his product. He's 29. Here is a man who has experienced. Bring him into your system, make him talk to the young people, and that's part of this process. Oops, sorry. In a startup ecosystem, the anatomy would require all these big companies, universities, funding organizations, service providers, such organizations, and these require ideas to be converted, and it involves seamless networking of people, organizations, institutions, and the government. And there are 10 key steps. Select a venture, identify unmet, underserved needs. Don't look at new products which requires marketing. Look at, study and assess the competitors. Think differently from them. Locate unique selling point. Establish market linkages. Plan the first 2 years, less than 2 years. And position a mentor and advisor. Revalidate the design thinking. Position a team that believes in the ideas and co-travelers. No employee in a startup company. They're all owners. That's a concept you need to do. Launch the startup with a lean structure and exit plan. You're looking at it in terms of the resourcing plan. These are death valley startups. And if you don't cover this, if you don't have a risk financing system, there can be no startup. This is an issue. And therefore, how do you finance the process? The startup enterprise associates the risk and failures, and you have to have an affordable, what you look at, affordable loss for investors. You don't talk about how much money you can make. A startup company says, what's the loss you can afford? Affordable loss. That's an input that you have to go through. And so key design, build team of co-workers, provide opportunities, create a forward mechanism, ensure and mentor self-efficacy, and cope with the emotional exhaustion in case of programs with longer gestation times beyond 5 years, because after that, startup companies are finished. So, since startups are associated with high risk, an ecosystem provides risk of capital and does not punish failures as necessary. We punish failures. The reasons as bureaucrats they are completely averse to risk, because you take a decision, 20 years later they send you to jail. Therefore, nobody wants to take any responsibility. And they are very sure of the procedures and processes, don't care about process and products, what happens. You can't blame them. I'm a bureaucrat myself, so I can tell you this. Because if you every day wake up after taking decisions, if you don't go to jail, you are happy. Therefore, this is the problem of our governance system. And here is some, basically, what punishing failure is counter to the concept of entrepreneurship. And for the purpose of records, because everything we say started in 10 years and 5 years. Please, nothing happens in a country like in 10 years and 5 years. Please let me tell you very frankly. It happens over a long period of time. India is not a country which operates on 1 year and 2 year process. 2005 to 14, there were 71 TBAs were established by DST. TBAs came yours since 2010. And we, in 2012, we reviewed it. Out of 2,800 startup companies had emerged from the startup that DSC supported, 28,000 jobs have been created, and we had given 200 plus crores, and they had a turnover of 7,400 crores, 1:37 ratio. Based on this, we set up a public policy where the investment into incubation park and academic environment is eligible for CSR. It was notified in 2013. Power of Ideas we set up, and we set up this GITA, which is a Global Innovation Technology Alliance. This is a company, and it's a BIRAC, fund of funds. All that happened during this period of time. And the BIRAC they talk about today was conceived and delivered at that time. The actions happen, and today we have Agile Innovation Centers, startups, and there's a continuity in the process. India's not the third, second as of last year. And total value, all that I mentioned here, Bangalore is listed within the top 20 startup cities in 2019. Therefore, this question of how can Hyderabad do better than Bangalore? I leave the choice to you. Landmark in 22, declaring equity investments in the startup as being eligible for tax exemption. That's a key step that has happened. India has about 50,000 startups. These are numbers. Some tips that I finish it. I'm already too late. So, study the case of Cambridge phenomenon for rooting in academic ambience. Develop a working model for realizing not Hyderabad phenomenon, Hyderabad synthesis. Because naturally it will not happen in this country, because you have to create some self-assembly won't happen. You have to create assembly process, and in 10 years' time. Think in terms of networks of clusters rather than institutional companies, individual institutions. Don't think in terms of Hyderabad University as an institution. Look at University of Hyderabad as a hub of this Hyderabad synthesis, around which the spokes operate. There's a question of appropriate business areas. Don't look at any business. Look at where your core strength of this region is. Maybe vaccine, maybe pharma, maybe electronics, maybe IT services. But you have to pick and choose areas where it can become a synthesis. Enroll stakeholders and place in the chain from students to the corporates, end to end. And enroll right shareholders. Okay? And government is a poor shareholder in this. For investing into risky ventures, mobilize resources for venture capital outside the government. Build a skill, expertise, professionalism and knowledge, because that is what knowledge alone will sustain. Skill will not. The skill has to change with time. So expertise is a narrow area. Professionalism is independent of what you try to do, and you need all the four. So the suggested Hyderabad synthesis. So just to show you that I have only one more slide. Because after that you see how many more slides left. So suggested Hyderabad synthesis, start the network. Network enterprises at the university, then Hyderabad Industrial Enterprise. You set up this and you support knowledge transfer, and you have established a student-run organization. In my former institution, I set up something called Flyers among the students of leather technology branch of Anna University. And they have to nurture and enhance entrepreneurial spirit, encourage, educate students to consider entrepreneurial spirit. That's a job of university today. You can't simply, you cannot say accurate knowledge alone is sufficient. Precious knowledge alone is sufficient. And precious stone is worthwhile to keep in your locker, but not enjoy. So they establish a science park. The good thing about Gurbakh Singh, he got a lot of land. And what he put a big compound wall. He spent money. I think that's the land that you have. Create a science park on a PPP mode, not government support system. Now, there is some useful example from IIT Research Park we can learn from, because they have gone through the same system, and establish a Hyderabad Innovation Foundation as whatever company you want to have. You can convert, aspire into it if you need it. And Section 8 company mobilizes capital in the form of equity, CSR funds, venture capital, and of course angel funds provides this financing. These are important. Let me say I finished my talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Before you walk away, sir, thank you so much. It was truly inspirational and aspirational, as you said. So I'm so happy that I now see a lot of students. You really kind of got 100,000-foot view of what entrepreneurship, innovation from a thought leader here. So thank you so much for all of that, sir.